Hello, it's Gill Fielding here, and this is what's caught my eye in the media this week. First of all, there's a fantastic growing new business, and that's the business of RentaFrock. Well, I call it RentaFrock anyway. And apparently this industry, this business, is going to be worth about $64 billion by 2024. And it's the trend, the opportunity to rent out your clothes in your wardrobe, and somebody else will lease them, will rent them, and then return them to you. So it means you're making better use of the clothes in your wardrobe. It means that people aren't constantly buying new clothes. Carrie Simons apparently got married in a rented dress when she married Boris Johnson, and also apparently rented all the clothes she needed for the G7 summit. I mean, this is a fantastic thing to do, and it is a brilliant business startup idea, because if you've only got one dress or one suit or one pair of trousers in your wardrobe, you can rent that out. And then once you start getting some cash in, you can use that to buy another dress or another pair of trousers and rent those out as well. So it's a brilliant business for starting from the very bottom up. And it's also sustainable, environmentally friendly. My only slight concern is all the cleaning costs and the detergents in between each usage. But on the assumption that they can be kept very low and very small, then what a great idea. Let's all rent a frock. Love it. Now, something I was reading about this week was about the term daylight robbery. And of course, daylight robbery was a term coined in the very end of the 17th century, when the government brought in a window tax. Now, the window tax was meant to punish the wealthy, because it initially only came in for properties that had 10 windows or more, and then that criteria was reduced to 7 windows or more, and it was meant to be taxing the wealthy, not the poor. But unfortunately, it also included tenement houses and blocks. So the poor people that were living in the tenements still got the window tax passed on to them by their landlords. And so they got their windows blocked up. So imagine living in incredibly poor conditions as they were at the time, and then having your window taken away. So for the poor of the country at the time, it was an absolute disaster. And eventually doctors and campaigners like Charles Dickens, for instance, eventually got the government to withdraw the window tax, and so windows stopped being boarded up, and that stopped in 1851. And it led me to thinking about today's world, in today's COVID world, where we're encouraged constantly to be outside, or if we're inside, to throw open our windows. And we know that being in fresh air is healthy and is good for you. And just imagine those poor folks back in the 17th century having to live in squalid conditions with no air and no method of opening a window. How poor their health must have been at the time. So very glad that hasn't carried on to today. But I did see that there's a fantastic exhibition of boarded up, bricked up windows, a photography exhibition at the Bermondsey Project Space. So if you want to have a look at those fantastic pictures, then please go. Now, I'm not usually one for moaning, but I'm a bit fed up with the insurance industry at the moment, because they seem to be taking COVID very much on their own terms. And those of us that willingly pay premiums for an insurance product are getting a bit fed up that the insurance isn't quite matching what we think we've bought. So, for example, our business has paid for many years a high premium for a business interruption scheme with a major insurer, only to find that that major insurer has decided unilaterally that COVID doesn't apply to them. And of course, as we probably know, that case is going through the courts. A group case on behalf of many thousands of customers is going through the high courts at the moment. And I think all the messages are that the insurers will have to pay out on those business interruption policies. But it took me to thinking this week about individual personal insurances, because every travel company is advertising COVID insurance. And sadly, not all COVID insurance is equal. And Which has done a survey of over 250 different travel policies supposedly covering COVID, to find that only 2 do actually cover a comprehensive range of issues to do with COVID, and those two policies are offered by major banks and only as part of another insurance policy or group. So it turns out that the insurance industry won't really pay out on all COVID type of cancellations, for example. So please do look at those insurance policies really carefully and go on to which and have a look at their current survey. But I think it's a bit unfair of the insurance companies, because we've all paid in, whether it's a business or an individual, we've all paid in with to these policies with the best intentions to get cover for what we see as an issue. For the insurance companies just to decide that they're not paying out, well, I think we've paid our premiums, we've paid for cover, you need to provide that cover, insurance companies, and darn well pay out on the policies. Now, I've also been reading this week about the amount of cash that we are spending, and it turns out that physical cash expenditure is down by 35% this year, and now contactless makes up about 27% of all transactions. And we as a nation, as a human race, have a very strange relationship with money. And we're taught from a very young age not to touch money because it's dirty. And we have these strange sayings in our culture, like you're filthy rich. And the connotations and connections to money as being something bad and dirty are very common in all cultures and religions. Now, what that does is subliminally, if you're a young child and your mum tells you to put the money down because it's dirty, you now make some kind of association that mummy doesn't like money and that it's not nice. And that creates beliefs about money, and that impacts our behaviours. So we become poor at handling money because subliminally at our subconscious level, we think it's bad or dirty. And of course, COVID has just made that 10 times worse, because we're now told that cash, physical cash, might have COVID infections on it, so not to touch it. So once again, we're being told that cash is not nice, it's dirty, it's infectious, it's not good for you. Now, that's all very well as long as we're all aware that we're just talking about the physical coins and the physical pieces of money. Money itself isn't dirty or wrong or bad. It's just money. It's just a transaction piece. So don't let these messages about cash impact how you believe and how you behave with money. Everybody can believe very positive things about money and change their behaviours and ultimately change their personal financial circumstance. Everybody can do it, starting from the bottom up, as long as you don't think that money's bad for you. That's all for this week. Speak to you next week.